What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Thinking CAAP, where we explore the ideas shaping leadership, community action, and the human experience. I'm Beck Moore, CEO of Community Action Association of Pennsylvania, and on each episode, we take a step back from the day-to-day demands of our work to really ask the bigger questions that help us lead with greater purpose. And so today's conversation is one that I think will really resonate with anyone in leadership, especially those of us in human services. We often are celebrating resilience, hard work, and the willingness to carry more than our share on a regular basis. But what if the very qualities that helped us become successful leaders are also the ones quietly leading us toward burnout? And so joining me today is Kara Hardin, the founder of the Practice Lab, a mental health educator, registered psychotherapist, and former corporate and securities lawyer who has spent the last decade working with high performers. Kara specializes in complex ways mental health shapes performance and how our internal patterns show up in our work and leadership. She holds a master's degree in counseling psychology from the University of St. Thomas and a Juris Doctor from the University of Toronto Faculty of Law. And at the heart of her work are two guiding values, learning and kindness, which are reflected really in everything she teaches. And so together today, we are exploring one central question. If the strategies that helped us survive childhood are the same strategies driving our leadership today, how do we know whether we're leading from purpose or from protection? It's a conversation about achievement, identity, burnout, and ultimately what it means to grow into the kind of leader who succeeds without sacrificing themselves. And so whether you lead a nonprofit, a team, or simply find yourself constantly striving to do more, I think and hope, actually, I know you'll find something meaningful in today's conversation. So Kara, welcome to Thinking CAAP. I am so glad that you're here today.
It's so fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, really. So let's start. One of my favorite questions to start with is just a little bit about your origin story. Your superpower story. So attorney, gone to a different side of work a little bit. How'd you find the work? What drew you to it? Talk to us a little bit about kind of your origin story and your backstory, if you will.
So I have spent the last decade obsessed with the question, what does it mean to have a healthy relationship with work? As you've said, I've asked that question as a lawyer. I've asked it as a therapist. I've asked it as CEO and founder of a mental health education business. The thing is, when I'm honest with myself, like when I'm really brave, I don't actually think that's the question. I think the question I've been trying to answer ever since I've been aware I was alive, I'm an existentialist human being, is what would it take? What would it mean for me to live this life well? And because work has become such a foundational aspect of how we spend our most precious resources, our time, energy, and attention, my inquiry, my work has led me there. And when I was a lawyer, it was a function of, how do I do this? Like, how do I bill 200 plus hours a month and still feel like myself? And as a therapist, I was responding to, well, how are other people navigating what it means to live life well? And eventually I kept seeing the same things over and over and over and over again, namely that the very ways we learn how to succeed can become the things that make us most unwell. And that's how the Practice Lab got started. And that's how I ended up here with you today, thinking through all the things you just said, thinking through the complexity of what it means to be high achieving in a world that is ever asking more of us.
Yeah. Right. Well, and ever changing, ever evolving.
Yes.
Particularly in human services, nonprofit work is complicated. People don't give it enough credit for what it really is. And I think in the human services world, we talk a lot about how, every time there's a political change, regardless of it's a county commissioner to a governor to, a highest office in the United States, right? The presidency, right? Like every time there's a shift in administration changes a flavor or a change to how an organization has to adopt different policies. And so it's really, really ever changing work on top of then all of the evolution that happens just in general in the world. So I was gonna ask the question about, do you think that billable hours really pushed on this idea as a concept for you, which you kind of already answered that question.
But there was something you just said there that I want to pull up if you'll let me. And so things are ever changing, right? The people that I tend to work with, the people that gravitate to my work and my ideas, they are people that learned that if they could just control themselves enough, if they could be perfect enough, if they could get results, if they could not ruffle any feathers, if they could be right, if they were good enough, that then they would have control over things outside of them. Right. So that can look something like, if I just write the exact perfect email, then I'm going to get that, like, this proposal will be accepted. Or if I do this presentation perfectly, if I have the right words, if I'm charismatic enough, then I will be received well. If I just take the exact right path, then I will be promoted. They believe that if they can control themselves enough, that they have control outside of them. And what that means in a world that is ever changing is they are constantly asking of themselves to be more and more disciplined, feeling like it is their lack of discipline that is the source of their strain and pressure and stress. And so if the world, in social services, in the world in public service, it's constantly changing, the response isn't something that perhaps would be, I use the word healthy very loosely, but something that perhaps would be healthy, which is, okay, here's what I can control. Here's what I can't control. This is really hard. I'm going to lean into this discomfort. What we see instead is, well, I feel overwhelmed because I'm not exercising. I feel overwhelmed because I need to set better boundaries and say no, and I need to go on a juice cleanse, and I need to meditate more. And if only I was more mindful and learned how to give feedback properly. And that's not to say that there isn't accountability and room for growth in these things. The challenge is they believe that they could navigate change by themselves being more controlling over who they are. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm quiet because it is something that it resonates with me because I've experienced this, and I've had to really do a lot of reflection on what is within the scope of my control. It is a question that I ask myself pretty regularly. I remind our team pretty regularly, because when we, one of our biggest things that we do every year is a large conference. And so we do a debriefing following that event, and we've all been together for a week. We all work remotely as well. So the fact that we're all together for a week when 99.9% of the time we are sitting in our homes working, and now you're thrown together, and there's only so much prep, there's only so much planning that can come into planning a large scale event like this. And there are just certain things that are going to happen that are not within the scope of our control. It doesn't make it a bad event. And so we spend time talking about, right? Like, and I make sure to remind everybody, let's think about and reflect on, if you could do it, what went well, what were things that you wanted, could have done differently. But at the end of the day, we can't worry about the fact that the tech didn't work at the plenary, right? Like we have to just go in knowing that there's going to be those things that happen. And I think it's really hard to help people reflect on the scope of control and let go of some of that. And so I'm quiet because I'm just like, yes, I mean, a bazillion % over. And I've gone the opposite, which is that, right? Like, no, I am going to box myself into this thing and try to, I'm going to try to do this on top of this, on top of this. And so because of all of the pressure and the other things that I was trying to control, my health just was decimated, and I was burning out on all kinds of other things, not just work, but all of it.
Yes. So, I mean, let's talk about how you make sense, and how anyone who's listening that has the response of, over controlling themselves as if they can control the world around them better also makes sense. You see, the ways that we learn to find success, they work to a certain extent, right? Like, there's a conditioned reinforcement. And when I say the ways we learn to find success, you work hard, you rest later, you get results, you be right, you come correct, whatever that means, right? We're also taught from a systemic place that success looks, walks, talks, and behaves a very particular way.
Yes.
And what happens is, actually, as you are growing up, you do get external accolades. You get the grades, you get the jobs, you get people going, gosh, you're so amazing. And it works. And it works and it works. And the more you do something, the more natural it feels to do, the more safe, secure, and connected you feel from something, or the more positive reinforcement you're going to get, the more you're going to do it. The challenge is when you reach a moment where that skill is no longer helpful, where it's actually not possible to optimize yourself anymore. It's not possible to make sure that the technology at the conference works. Because in that moment, if you've only learned to succeed in those ways, and if the story at the heart of it is, I can only succeed in those ways, then what happens is a paradox, right? Your drive to do something starts to feel dreadful. And in that dread, the only thing you know how to do is drive harder. So I can be even more practical. It was the middle of the pandemic, no, early in the pandemic. And I had a 9-week-old baby and a 3-year-old son, and he was medically compromised. He would get febrile seizures. My husband worked the type of job that I think a lot of our listeners work, where there just aren't enough hours in the day. And when you care a lot, you want to give a lot. And I, had a 1-year-old mental health education business. And so what that meant is, like, every day I woke up, and in the words of Lynn Twist, my first thought was, I didn't get enough sleep. My next thought was, I don't have enough time. Before my feet even hit the floor, I felt inadequate. And there was this one day I was walking my dog, I was alone, and I saw this big balloon arch. You know, those arches with like big and small. Yeah, those arches. And I kid you not, I came undone. There was a sign underneath it that said Layla turned 4. And so they were like obviously celebrating Layla's birthday. And on March 16th of 2020, my son turned 3, and he and I share a birthday. And so for his birthday, I made him my favorite cake, and I let him have a piece, and I got him a stroller attachment. That was how I celebrated his birthday. So when I was confronted with this like grand gesture, I felt like a bad parent. If I'm being honest, thank you, patriarchy. I felt like a bad mom. And in that moment, I did what I see high achievers do again and again and again. I had a cry for all of 3 seconds. And then I got up and I started looking up how to make balloon arches. I was going to make the best balloon arch that you had ever seen in your life.
I'm not laughing at you, Kara, for any of our listeners who are watching.
This is it. I mean, it was comical. And not only was I going to make the best balloon arch, like become a professional balloon arch artist.
I'm going to start a side business where I'm going to make balloon arches, because it's going to be the best damn balloon arch.
It's going to be it's not just I'm going to make the best balloon arch you've ever seen. And I'm going to get my family on a sleep schedule, and I'm going to meditate better, and I'm going to exercise. I called my therapist. And when you're a therapist and you call your therapist, they like talk to you. They're like, it's a bat line. And I was like, I don't need to talk about my childhood. I don't need to talk about what triggered this emergency call. What I know I need right now is to train for the marathon I've always wanted to run. Right. And so in that moment, the skill that was loudest to me was be better, Kara. You're a bad mom. Be better, do better, climb harder. As opposed to, gosh, you're trying your best and it's hard going out there. And all the ways that you learned how to succeed, that's actually right now going to make your life much harder. You cannot control this feeling. You cannot help this feeling. And so if you're listening to me right now, thinking to yourself, goodness, Kara, you should have been more gentle. It was just a balloon arch. It didn't really matter. Of course you love your kids. If you're thinking that, then I want you to think about your to-do list and all the items on your to-do list. And when was the last time you ever said to yourself, goodness, I've got a lot on my plate, and it's just a memo, or it's just a project, or it's just a deadline. And all I can do is keep putting myself into the world in the ways that I am, and trust that that's enough. This is the challenge. Is it works until it doesn't, until you're on the curb, literally decimated, bawling about something.
Yeah.
And then you need something else. And then you need something to loop out of the paradox and loop out of the narrative that you're in control over more than you are.
Yeah. My brain is exploding right now. I rarely have no words. But I am just having these flashbacks of all of these moments that the balloon arch, I've got many variations of the balloon arch experience that I'm just like,
Wait, tell us one. What's one?
yeah, oh goodness. So so a couple things you need to know about me, Kara. I mean, I know that we've gotten to know each other a little bit in other calls that we've had, but I'm the oldest of 5 kids.
Yeah.
And we didn't grow up with a lot. You know, my parents both worked very long hours. So I really took care of my brothers and sisters on a regular basis, right? Like got them off the bus, walk home, we'd, clean the house, would make dinner for everybody. My parents would come home, we'd eat together, and then I would go do my homework and rinse and repeat. And that was just the nature of what had to happen because we didn't have enough, right, for babysitter. Yeah. And so even at the age of, I think I was 8 watching my 4-year-old brother. Oh, wow. Which is, as somebody who has an 8 and 9-year-old now, I'm like, oh my God, leaving them home is not the choice that's happening. No. The 8-year-old, maybe. 9-year-old, no.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a scenario where like you had to work hard, and working harder meant you'd have the things that you needed, and you just worked hard and hard and hard and hard and hard. And that was just it. So prior career, I worked in a leadership organization, and we'd gone through a lot of turnover, and I was a COO at the time. I had been at that organization for probably 10 years at this point, and I had grown from, right, like beginning of my career to sitting in the COO spot. So worked really hard, learned everything I could, asked all the questions, right, that I could to try to do better at all the things, to get the promotion, and ultimately had very specific goals that, I wanted to get to at any given point. Well, I knew that I also wasn't making healthy choices. Like, I just didn't feel good. I was starting to gain a lot of weight. I was like, I really need to go to the gym. I've never really been somebody who's worked out regularly, so I'm going to start working out. But it was also at that point culturally, right? Like you needed, as a leadership team member, you need to be first in, first out. And so that meant getting up, and I lived an hour and 20 minutes away from where I worked. So I was commuting an hour and 20 minutes one way. So that meant getting up to go to the gym by 4 a.m., would go and work out for an hour and a half, and then go.
An hour and a half?
Yeah.
Because I see this drive.
I'm going to do it, right? Like
you're going to do it.
I'm going to
You better do it. Yeah.
And not only am I going to train for, my first 5K, but I'm going to train for a half marathon and for a full marathon.
Go for broke.
Because before I turn 40, I'm going to run the marathon because, well, why wouldn't I? I can do this. I can do anything.
Yes.
And, I think everything that happened then over the course of the next few years, and just how hard I was pushing, I had just complete and utter moments where my body just was like, nope, not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I remember running a 10K. It was my first 10K. I'd done 5Ks up until then. And I'm not a good runner. Like anybody who, like, I do run. I am not a runner. I don't care that I've run multiple half marathons at this point. I'm not a runner. So I'm running this 10K, and it's a very hilly spot. And there's maybe only, I don't know, 50 people running this 10K. And I am dead last. And when I say dead last, like I am significantly behind everybody else. And I can hear the vehicle that follows the runners.
They're just following you.
Like they are waiting for me to be done so that they can all go home. And there is just a point in this race, I think I was probably at mile like 7. And I'm just like, I don't know what mile I was at. I was at towards the end, and I'm just like, I just burst into tears, and I was just like, I can't do this. What the hell are you thinking? And that I think that run was one that I was like, okay, like something's got to change.
Yes.
And it was just a distinct moment where like I was pushing and pushing and pushing. I ended up having to have a surgery that followed not too long after that. experience because of something I kept putting off and couldn't get sort of like the medical attention that I needed,
Yeah.
because everything else was taking precedent over my body and feelings. So I know that was a very long answer to the question about the balloon arch and what's one of my balloon arch moments, but like that was one of the moments where I'm just like so clearly can see like, right, the choice to go to work out, the choice to do this, the choice to do this, the choice to do this.
So I think, again, to like underscore and highlight, all of my thinking centers around this idea that you make sense. And we grow up being taught that if you do it right, if you do life right, and that is never defined explicitly, it is implicitly through stories and models and systems and structures. Meaning is imbued upon what that is. You know, work hard, look a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way, be a certain way. Then all of the parts of you inside will be harmonious. Like every part of you will be satisfied.
Right, I'll feel happy. I will feel happy.
You'll feel happy. Happiness, right? You will be happy. You will be fulfilled. You will. It's more than happy. You will be at peace. You will not stress, like as if stress is a bad thing. And so if you care about life, if you are someone who is oriented like me, who wants to know, well, how do I live life well? And if you have had developmental experiences that leave you especially vulnerable to the influence of what other people need, then you are more likely, then you are more likely to strive in this way, believing like, if only I could do this right, if only I was good, if only I was able to contort myself enough. And that makes sense because that is what we are taught implicitly and explicitly. Now, the thing that no one told me that I wish someone had is the reality is there are many different parts of you. And all of the parts of you belong. All of them belong. There isn't a part that's better or worse, that's right or wrong. In fact, most often, the parts of you that matter the most to you will conflict. So the part of me that is sick right now and wants to be lying in bed, like my body, conflicts with the part of me that loves talking to you and, is curious about the part of me that wishes she exercised today. Like all of these parts conflict. And the reality is that in life as an adult, you have to choose which parts of you will you satisfy and which parts of you will you soothe. And that's not a question Claude can answer. Yeah. That is not a question your mother can answer. That's not a question that you can put in consensus with all of your best friends. There is only one you with your gifts, your disposition, your context, your resources, your limitations. There is only one way of making you feel alive. And you are the only one that has access to it. Like you make sense, and you don't need me, an expert, to tell you here are the 5 things you need to do to be mentally healthy. What you need is you, the expert, to pay attention to the parts of you that feel alive, regardless about what you were taught about how valuable they were. And for you to find the fortitude and the courage to follow your aliveness. And there is complexity there because like I'm a white, probably upper middle class woman. There are privileges where I can be like, a la Gabby Bernstein, the universe has your back and just be yourself and follow your aliveness. And like, that's not quite it.
Yeah.
What I am trying to express is something to the effect of, if you want to know how to live your life well, there is no single rule book. There is no single playbook. And you cannot turn to anybody outside of you to give you those answers because there isn't a single right way. There isn't a single wrong way. There is just your way. And you are here to figure out what that is for you.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine a more meaningful, exciting, terrifying thing.
Yeah. Have you been talking to my therapist? I feel like you've been talking to my therapist. Like what you're saying is just
therapist convention.
Serious.
We all talk to each other.
Right. Like what did Beck share? So 2 things I'm going to just remark on. And then I want to ask a couple of questions to help. Well, before I share 2 stories, I want to ask the question. So you've mentioned people as strivers. You sort of
Yes.
made that comparison a moment ago when I was telling you about the working out story. How can you explain what that really means, and how does
Yeah.
someone understand and connect to the fact that they are a striver, which I could probably list 50 people within our network right now that we work with on a regular basis that would follow this category. But if
Yeah.
you can just help our audience understand a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So I think about a striver as someone who is constantly trying to be better and do more. And what that looks like is often achievement and accomplishment and relentless self improvement. I try and be very values neutral and non judgmental because I think at the heart of striving is a desire to live life well. You are a striver if you cherish life and want to get the most out of your life. That's how I think about it. Is that what you think when I say that? Or what do you think when I say striver?
I think it's someone who's always pushing themselves. I think of myself. I think about somebody who's pushing
Mm.
themselves. I don't know what I'm pushing myself to. I mean, that's part of what I've been sort of thinking about as you're talking is
Yeah.
I've not really ever taken the moment to define what is really success for me.
Oh, interesting. Well, you've
Right. And
probably never
that,
had to. The world offers you just achieve status, wealth, and influence back.
right.
Don't
And
you
so,
know?
right. So what does
Yeah.
that mean? What does that
Yeah.
mean? And what level of influence? Right. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
have a hard time saying no because, right. I have a hard time setting boundaries because of all kinds
Mhm.
of different things. But I also think that that idea
Mm.
of you are somebody who is just trying to continue to do better than you've done before,
Yes.
better perhaps than what you've had, and you've not really defined that for yourself, and so you find yourself just in this constant sort of spiral of, well, I've just got
Yeah.
to do the next thing because that's what's going to make this better, or that's what's going to make me better, that's what's going to make the team better, it's what's going to make the company better, so it's going to make this
Yes.
project better. It's literally striving for the next step, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So Sean Aker, who's a happiness researcher, he used to run a class out of Harvard, like the famed happiness course. He's now started his own consultancy. He defines happiness as the joy you feel when reaching towards your potential. And I heard that on this is going to date me, but a Super Soul Sunday episode of Oprah Winfrey. And over the years in my mind, it transformed into the joy you feel when striving towards your potential. And after a number of years working with who is typically called a high performer or a high achiever or a top 40 under 40 or a top 30 under 30 or someone who is at the peak of their game, I just thought that is so, the idea of a high achiever, a high performer, that language is so imbued in the programming and conditioning that leads to just automatically going for better and reaching for more. And so the language of striving for me is really meant to help us get out of the system and ask the question that you're really asking, like, sure, we want to be better. Better about what?
yeah,
And better in relate, like it's really meant to sort of shake up inside of us. I am someone who's reaching. I'm someone who's reaching.
yep,
And the story I make up about you is if you're a striver, what you're reaching for is actually a life well lived.
yep,
But you may not know that. And what you also may not know are you reaching towards your particular deliberately chosen life well lived? Or are you automatically just reaching for what you learned would guarantee you or what promises you
yep,
that your life will be worthy and
yeah.
well spent?
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting thing, right? Because again, if you if we go back to kind of the childhood piece, right, and we think about how that then influences, if you didn't have a lot, if you didn't have or
Mm-hmm.
didn't see what felt like happiness, then what does that really mean for you? And again, it goes back to this idea then of, right, like, how have I really have I stopped to really think about how
Yeah.
does that really look, right? Like, okay, you have the house, you have the car, you have the job. Great. Now what? Right. Well, I'm going to continue to work harder to acquire more. Is it the acquisition of things? Is it the acquisition of, okay, now I have two kids. Do I need the third kid? Right. What does that mean? Is it about what I give my kids? Is it about helping them understand how to do better? What does that mean? And it just becomes, I feel like this, again, this kind of like spiral for me anyway, right? This spiral of, and I think sometimes this dissatisfaction that I find in what I'm doing, because I'm like, okay, well, what am I really working towards then? How is, again, like the definition of success or happiness or whatever that is a hard question for me to answer sometimes, because I don't know that I've ever stopped to think about it long enough.
So first of all, I do think there are privileges associated with being able to stop and think.
Oh, yes, a million percent. Right? Yes.
Right. So there's I have a cough now, so you see this.
No. That's okay. Ricola, if you're listening and you want to sponsor the podcast, let us know.
Yeah, please reach out. Reach out to Beck. I'll even like guest cameo and be like, Ricola. I'll happy to do that again. So there again, you have to be really careful in this space that this is not good or bad.
Oh, sure.
This is not right or wrong. I think also, so Carl Rogers, who's one of the leading thinkers in sort of person-first therapy, talks about this idea of congruence, where the person you are on the inside matches the person you are in the world on the outside. And the way I sort of conceptualize striving is, on one end of the spectrum, you either are unaware of your multidimensionality on the inside, or you are simply aware and ignoring it and moving towards what you have been taught will make you valuable. All the way, so there is a significant incongruence, right? A lack of congruence, all the way to you have an awareness of your multidimensionality. You are picking which parts of you to satisfy and soothe. And so there's an incredible congruence, not because you're satisfying all of the parts of you, but because you are deliberately aware and choosing to put into the world and to lead with intentionality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of challenges that strivers struggle with has to do with this. How congruent can they be? How congruent can they be? And that, importantly, is not something that anyone else gives you ever.
Yeah.
Like congruence is self-awareness, self-understanding, and self-choice. And there are spaces where that is more and less possible, but it doesn't mean being accepted everywhere you go, because you are not in control of that. Congruence is being aware of all of the different parts of you and being like, here's what I'm going to put forward. This is the thing that I'm going to lead with.
Yeah.
Even though all the parts of me belong and are valuable.
Yeah. I'll give you a comparison that has been kind of rolling around in my brain right now. So I love to fish. That's something that, and this example is not going to really, resonate with everybody, but I think it's such a simplistic way of looking at this in a lot of ways. I used to fish all the time with my dad. It was something, I don't know how having taken two of my children fishing, my two kids fishing, it is, particularly when they're little, is quite the experience. And he used to take all of us fishing on his own. I don't know how we didn't end up left in a creek somewhere, frankly, because we were a wild bunch. But fishing is something that I've found again later in life, and have really enjoyed. I usually talk about it as one of the rare things that turns my brain off, because I'm just engaged in the activity, right? And I don't have to think. But this year in particular has been a hard fishing year. And so I find myself becoming really frustrated because I'm not catching fish. And I'm like, well, if I'm not catching fish, then what's the point, right? Like, I'm supposed to be catching fish. That is part of the excitement of doing the fishing. Yes. And yet there are still those moments where, like, I was kayaking on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, and it's a bazillion degrees outside. We had this crazy heat wave. So it's 100 degrees outside and I'm kayaking and there's really nobody around. And I happen to look up across the lily pads and there's this beautiful deer that's just kind of standing on the edge of the bank eating, and it's by itself. And I happen to have my phone and I take a picture and it doesn't really capture, what's happening. And it's like, all right, Beck, put the phone away and just experience your day. And it was a beautiful day. But I left there feeling really frustrated and asking myself again, right? Like, well, what was the point of doing that? If I'm not going to catch anything, what was the point? Like, I should have chosen this other fishing spot. But this is one of those moments where, right, like I'm taking something that I love to do, that is a calming thing that I started to do because it's calming. And I've put on my striver hat and I'm ruining it.
Okay. So I'm so glad you told that story, because a common reminder that I like to give is very simple. It was never about making things happen. It's always been about who you got to be as you tried.
Yeah.
Like, you can't make fish happen. And
I'm trying.
Right? You can't make fish happen, but our world would actually have us, like, if you're really in that like automatic striving part of you, it would say, Kara, that's like the dumbest thing. Of course, Beck could have. He could have picked a different spot. He could have had a different rod. He could have had a different bait, could have picked a different time of day. Look at all the things he could control. And what I respond is, there is no control outside of your own response.
Right.
And it was never about it's not about making fish happen.
Right.
It's about the experience of being someone who's fishing and having all of that happen around you. And fishing is such a poignant example. As a non-fisher person, fisher lady.
I accept that.
Right? As a fisher lady, I have this image of like just being in a boat and just being like, wow, wah, wah. Right, and there's, right?
But it's so silly though, because it's, I said to my wife, I was like, I watched, 35 YouTube videos last night. I have more tackle than any human ever needs. Like, I have yard tails, right? I have every type of tackle you could imagine. I've got the apps to track the moon and the phases of the, like, seriously, Kara, it's ridiculous. I have
tells me how much you care
into this fishing space that it is becoming not the thing I enjoy. It is becoming a task of catching the fish, even though I'm not eating the fish, to be clear, because if you know anything about where I lived, you wouldn't eat the fish that were here either. But it's catch and release, right? It's just the act of, okay, this is something that's going to calm my brain. But what I'm realizing is it's no longer the calming activity, because if I'm not achieving anything in it, then it's not worth the task. And that is sort of the lie that I have told myself to a degree.
But it's, again, you make sense. It's what you have been taught. And there's something of a momentum, like since before COVID, optimization and productivity and hyper efficiency, it has exploded.
Yeah.
Like, it's everywhere. And I think a lot of it has to do with having at our fingertips endless optionality for embetterment. Like, there was I walk into any coffee shop, let's call it a Starbucks. Also, feel free to sponsor the pod, Starbucks. Right? And you walk in, and it not only are you deciding if you want coffee or tea or a matcha or some sort of, but like, there's the size of beverage, the type, the toppers, the temperature, the individual customization. Like, it's like my order is like, I want a matcha with coconut milk, no foam, no added sweetener, extra hot. It's like the most obnoxious thing, but we all do it. And with that comes a pressure to get it right. Because you had so many choices, you had so many options. There is a relief of walking into a diner and there being, we have calf or decaf. And you're like, well, this isn't going to be so great. It's just going to be fine. And so in this world where at our fingertips is endless optionality, there is a pressure to get it right. And that get it right really pulls on our developmental vulnerabilities. On if I was perfect enough, then I would feel happy if I could just get this right. And so it's not just been the development of easy access technology, it has been the momentum building pressure to self-actualize as a result, as if you just did it right, you would be magically satisfied. Self-actualization requires endless evolution. It's a target that's ever in front of you. It's Sisyphean. You don't do it. There's a book, I don't know who the author is, but Oliver Berkman speaks about it, and he's written a number of books in this space. And he talks that the book is called Death, the End of Self-Improvement. And I just that's the most brilliant title I've ever heard.
Yes.
Because that's what it is. And so it actually takes deliberate effort to cultivate a sense of good enough in a world of endless optionality, in a world of endless pressure. And it doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean that you're not trying. It simply means that you're looking at a balloon arch across the street and going, you know what? That option was available to me and I chose to sleep instead. And while that's really hard for some parts of me, it's the life that I'm going to lead. Yeah. And when I'm 80, God willing, 180, actually that's probably too long. Let's say like a 98-ish. And looking back, I can look back and go, this was mine. Yeah. This was reflective of me, of my values, of my heart, of my spirit. And while I didn't get to do everything I wanted, I got to do most of what I cared about.
Yes. It's just, are you a Hamilton fan?
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
wait for it. Tell me more.
We could have a whole podcast.
We could just have a whole conversation back and forth quoting. Lin-Manuel Miranda is just, to spend time alone figuring out how he thinks in the collaborative process. Oh, it would be a dream come true.
Well, talk about a brilliant mind. But there's, the song in Hamilton about being satisfied, and it's sort of repeated over and over and over again. And I think from the moment that I first heard the soundtrack of Hamilton, and having seen the show and having watched the show on Disney Plus, and listened to the soundtrack over and over and over again, it was one of the only things that settled my son for a long time on long car drives, even as a little tiny guy. And so it's just that every time I hear that song, though, I have thought about this idea of, okay, well, Beck, what's really going to create satisfaction for you?
Yeah.
And I am somebody who if I think back to, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, today, this version of me compared to that version of me, I do have far more clarity. I know that I've said I don't really have the answer to what really success means, because I still don't quite, because I find myself in this cycle of, and I said this to somebody just the other day, of, I've been somebody who's set 3 to 5 year goals. I've achieved those goals, and I'm really proud of the fact that I've achieved those goals. And I'm at this point in my life where I've not set the next goal, and that's leaving me feeling very, I don't know, floofy. I don't know the right word.
Like a little bit rudderless. I mean, so I think it's important to recognize two things. The first is different parts of you will be satisfied by different things. Like satisfaction isn't a one size fits all hat. Right. And we have to be clear about that to ourselves and to other people. There are times, especially at work, especially when you're working in a space that gives you purpose and enjoyment, that your body will not be satisfied because you won't be exercising and you won't be eating in the ways that you want, and you may not be sleeping, but your ambitious self professionally will be satisfied. So satisfaction is a one size fits all thing. It also evolves and changes. And so for me, I often work with my clients, and in my own life, I actually think less of satisfaction and more about aliveness.
Yeah.
More about the things that sparkle magic inside of you. And so from the place of setting goals, I think less about what will leave me feeling full, what will leave me feeling sated, and more about what will make me more alive. Which things, which pursuits, which avenues will help me nourish the parts of me that I am curious to grow. For me, the word aliveness is a window into that, because I can feel it. It's often the things I joke that I feel most alive when I'm at the edge of thrill and terror. Like when I feel just vulnerable enough and just worried enough about, am I going to be able to do it? But that's going to be different for everyone listening, going to be different for you. And it's a little bit tricky because it means sometimes setting, it's not best manifestation practices, goals that are more sensory or more emotion based than they are specific and concrete. It means being slightly more abstract. In my thinking, though, which anyone who's listening, you're the expert on you, like accept, reject, counteroffer, you're honing into a frequency of yourself that you just want to grow. Like that is like, oh, this is the part of me. Yeah. That's what I want more of in my life. And so when I'm making decisions, when I'm going to plans, I don't necessarily ask about that concrete thing. I check in and go, is that the right channel? Is that the channel that actually I'm trying to develop, or does that take me somewhere else?
Yeah. Again, I say
does that make sense?
No, it does. I feel like my brain is just exploding a little bit with self-realization and trying to figure out how to I don't know. I knew that this would be a discussion that would resonate with me personally for all kinds of different reasons. In a future episode, Kara and I are going to take this conversation one step further. Once we understand the patterns that are driving us, how do we become healthier leaders? Right? It's not just about the learning, it's about the action that we take. And so then how do we create organizations where people don't have to sacrifice themselves to succeed? And we'll really explore that in part 2.
Thank you for being a part of this episode of the Thinking CAAP. Check the show notes for resources and links to other episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and follow to be notified when new episodes are released. If you have any community action questions you'd like Beck, Amanda, or one of our local experts to answer in a future episode, please email your questions about community action to info@thecaap.org. Subject line, Thinking CAAP.